Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another season review. And this time we are going to talk about Tottenham, my favorite club. And we have KV with us, who is a big Tottenham fan. Hey,
Hey
KV,
Supreet, love the way you introduced Tottenham.
why do you sound like that? Tottenham have had a good season, right?
Yeah, man, our worst season and we still finish above Arsenal. Yeah.
Did you end it with the trophy?
Let's not get there. It's becoming a common theme. Yeah,
Okay, so let's kind of start discussing. Firstly, how the season
yeah,
started. And let's talk about transfers. And obviously there was a lot of excitement among Spurs fans with all the summer signings, right? Højbjerg coming in, Matt Doherty from Wolves, Joe Hart obviously on a free transfer as a backup goalie, and then the two big ones, Regulion from Real Madrid,
mhm,
if
yeah,
I'm right, and Bale as well,
yeah.
on loan from Real Madrid. What did you think of how Tottenham went about their transfers? Did they get all the players they needed to fill in at important positions? And and do you think all of these transfers have justified themselves? And another name that I missed is Vinicius,
Yep, yep.
right? Yeah,
Okay, so at the beginning of the season, obviously, there were three key positions, or rather four key positions that Tottenham needed to strengthen. One, obviously, is a right back position, given the inconsistencies of Aurier and Doherty was Mourinho's choice. Apparently, he was Mourinho's target, and
yeah.
Daniel Levy got him. Uh,
Hmm.
and
But was he bought in as a backup to Aurier, or was he supposed to be first
he
choice?
was supposed to be first choice. Unfortunately, that didn't turn
Hmm.
out quite well because I think uh, in the first half of the season, I believe Aurier was pretty good, pretty consistent as well. I mean, there were still some silly mistakes, but you could blame the entire team for that. Um but then I guess he sort of I mean, the thought was that with him carrying so much of experience, it would be a seamless transition that he would fit into the Spurs model. But I guess what they didn't sort of take into calculation is the fact that he's always played in a back five as a wing back. Which was not how Mourinho set his team up. And certainly for someone who's played in that type of a lineup, it sort of became difficult for him. But I would expect any quality player, any quality right back to sort of fall back into a 4-4-2 when required, because I mean, all the main job is to defend, right? I know we sort of tweak the
Yeah,
system to make them play to their strengths and ensure they're up the pitch, but they essentially they are a defender. So I guess that was a miscalculation, and probably this was not taken into consideration. I know he was available for $13 million, which seemed like a steal at that time. But then, yeah, it quite didn't work out. But I think another key position that we had to strengthen, and there were, I mean, people were just crying out for this, was a centre back. Yeah, we did bring on Joe Roden, a young Welsh centre back, who did fairly well. But then he was brought in with a mind that he would take a season or two to develop and then slot in
mm,
and play more
yeah,
as a backup rather than as a first choice centre back. So that I mean, we were so close with Milan Skriniar of Inter Milan, who had a terrific season
mm,
before that. But I guess it all came down to the price. I guess Spurs couldn't agree a deal, and Mourinho wanted Ruben Diaz. Ruben Diaz wanted to come to Spurs, and then we couldn't agree. Yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah. He admitted this. So he,
But why would any player want to do that to
yeah,
themselves?
right. See, there's something that they see that you guys don't, obviously. So, but then, obviously, we couldn't pay 70 million for a defender in the current climatic condition. So
Mm,
it was
mm,
absolutely never going to happen. But then, yeah, that ensured that. Mourinho got sacked. That position was what decided his. I mean, amongst others, but yeah, it was a very major important factor that Tottenham's defense was primarily the reason that they couldn't finish in the top four and also win a trophy. Now,
Yeah.
left back, I was okay with Ben Davies, but then the club decided to send Ryan Sessegnon on a loan. And that made it clear that we needed with Danny Rose out of the squad, we needed a first choice because say what you may, but Ben Davies is an average player, is a bang average player, consistent but very average, and
Mm.
in a
Mm.
defense that's already you know I don't know, leaky. He was probably not the right fit. But then Regulon was an exciting deal. I think probably I was more happy because that came out of nowhere, and it was sort of a freebie, you know, a freebie or a sweetener in a deal that involved Bale. But I was glad for the price of 25 million. Although obviously there was a clause in his contract that will allow him to go back to Real Madrid if they come in for about 40 million, if I'm not wrong. So, but still, I didn't like how it ended. The season ended for him because he was disastrous in the last four games. Very honestly, because and I guess even in the game against I don't remember which team, Leeds, I guess. No, he scored an own
Mm.
goal and then no, Aston Villa. So he scored an own goal and then another error leading to the second goal of Villa. So yeah, the last few games were terrible from him, but still, I think he's someone with a good potential, and yeah, one for the future. I'm still happy with that signing.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, again, another important position we needed was a backup to Harry Kane. Uh,
Mm.
so loan deal made sense because you look at how many successful strikers have been imported from other leagues or probably been bought up.
Mm.
It's disastrous. I guess the numbers are not really in the favor because you saw so many big name signings fail, and so it was definitely a risk. So it was a good deal that they stuck up with him coming on a loan with an option to buy. Thankfully, I mean, I was skeptical at that moment because he looking at the way his career turned out. He started off as a defender, uh, played as a midfielder, then became a striker, and then had just one good season at
Yeah.
Benfica. I wasn't really convinced because, yeah, talent-wise, definitely. I mean, there must be something, and
Mm.
he's Portuguese, and Mourinho wanted him, but it more looked like a Daniel Levy signing. We were short of options because it's let's be honest, no one wants to come to Spurs to play second fiddle to Harry Kane, and
Mm.
so we had to deal with the options that we had. I actually wanted Giroud to come in, but then again, he wouldn't because he knows that he's not going to play much, and he's got a better chance of playing at Chelsea rather than Tottenham, even though Werner came in.
Mm.
So uh, again, so that continues. That search for a second striker continues this season because I don't expect Spurs to make this option permanent. I'm sure he'll head back to Benfica, and we are going to be in the market again for the second striker. And probably, I mean, if
Mm.
Kane leaves, in all honesty, I think we need two more strikers. So one quality and one centre back. So one as a backup. But then again,
Yeah.
Vinicius, he did score goals when he was called in, but let's admit that it was against lesser known teams in the Europa League. So again, he didn't. Fair enough to him, he didn't get game time, but then I'm sure that must be because he probably isn't up to the mark from what has been seen in the
Mm.
training. Uh, and arguably, for the signing of the season, Højbjerg, I guess Mourinho, again, a typical Mourinho's player. He needed a defensive midfielder. He got one because there are absolutely no outright DMs at Tottenham. And
Mm.
what a phenomenal job he's done. I mean, he's played every minute of the Premier League, and he's
Yeah.
also played games in the Europa League and the cups as well. So absolutely phenomenal. He's a warrior, a Viking warrior, and I obviously, I mean, in our previous episodes as well, I kept saying, if there is one person who probably would face a burnout, it's going to be Højbjerg. Probably not even Harry Kane, but Højbjerg. and it showed. You could see a decline in the last 8 to 9 games in the
Yeah.
I mean in the league. So it was expected
Yeah.
because when you play every minute, I mean, no matter
Hmm.
how, I mean, you cannot keep that consistency. But overall, I guess
Hmm.
he's a very, very good signing. And net, we spent 2 million on him. So with the Kyle Walker Peters deal, so absolute steal. I still think he's got a good. I don't know. The kind of role that he's going to play next season will depend on the manager. Uh,
Hmm.
he was a Mourinho signing, and I won't be surprised that if the club decides to sell him now, if a good deal comes up, because we have Oliver Skip, who is still capable. Maybe he's not an outright defensive midfielder, but I think he's the one for the future for at Tottenham. His loan,
Hmm.
he did really really well for Norwich. He was the I guess he was selected in the player of the. He made it to the team of the season in the championship, and he was probably even
Hmm.
he sort of got man of the match what week in week out at Norwich. So really interested in seeing him coming back. But then again, I would love to hold on to Højbjerg because he's one of the very few people who's got that winning mentality at Spurs. So we need players like him. But then again, he's done pretty well for me. Joe Hart, I wouldn't get there too much. I guess he was. I see. There's an issue of homegrown quota at Spurs,
Hmm.
and although I mean Gazaniga was still available, I still didn't understand. I would prefer Gazaniga over Joe Hart any day as a second keeper. To be very honest, I mean fair play to Joe. Uh, with the credentials that he's got, I think I would say that he was brought in for a very specific role, that is to have a winner in the dressing room. I mean, I've heard from so many people that Joe Hart is quite vocal, and he's someone who maintains that camaraderie in the dressing room and ensures that
Hmm.
he motivates people and stuff. But it should have been for that. I still think Gazaniga should have been the second choice, but anyway, I think the club decided to send him on loan in Jan, and also he's left the club. His contract got terminated, but so it appears that Joe Hart will continue to be the second choice keeper. I'm really not too sure. Loris is pushing. I guess. I mean, he it should I won't be surprised if he decides to move on and we decide to bring in a keeper, or probably another season at least. But yeah, performances wise, it has been sloppy. It hasn't been that great. So it was again a hit or miss signing for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
So whom did I miss? Gareth Bale, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, I don't know. United fans say he's a disaster. Sky call him a flop. But let me remind everyone that he scored more goals than Edinson Cavani in less games, and uh, Edinson Cavani apparently is a super signing. So let's just leave it there. Okay, I think he's had a phenomenal impact. He's probably,
In terms of key goals, has he scored enough key goals like at important
I
moments
would say, yeah.
compared to
Uh,
Cavani?
may not be that, but again, fair play to Gareth Bale. He wasn't played at all in the second half of the season by Mourinho. I mean, that's his fault. I would blame him for that. But whenever he was on the pitch and Spurs were lacking creativity, he made an impact. Be it coming off the bench or be it starting the games, I think the kind of impact that he has had that resulted in the games turning our way was extraordinary. And he's I guess he's got the best goals per minute ratio in the Premier League, in the entire Premier League, and that shows the kind of impact that he's had. Obviously, he's not the player that he used to be, but he's still got the pace. He's still got that decisiveness. He can still take on players. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, we still end up paying 40% of his wages, 250 $250,000, somewhere on, I mean, somewhere on that figure. But the question
Hmm.
that the club will now have is it worth keeping him for another season at that wages? Now,
Hmm.
We really don't know his contract situation. Madrid might be like, no, we're not going to foot 60% of his bill. We probably will end up footing only 40%. You would take up the remaining 60%. And so that would be the decider, because he's got a contract. Obviously, he's not going to accept lower wages. But then again,
Hmm.
it's all going to be on Daniel. And I would love to see him, honestly, back at the White Hart Lane for another season. I mean, if he is managed well, his game time is managed well, and the front three of Son, Bale, and Kane is, I don't know, it's still mouth watering, and one proper attacking midfielder behind them, and they're gonna be tearing the league apart. So yeah,
Hmm.
I am satisfied with Bale's season overall, and I'm glad he came back because more than I mean, I think it pleased a lot of fans. So going back through those memories, it was really nice to see him on in a Spurs shirt again.
So, I mean, we talked about, all the summer signings and all the summer transfers so far, and it seemed like Tottenham had started the season well. I mean, pretty well.
Yeah,
There was obviously that big match at Old Trafford where Tottenham won six
hmm,
one. I mean, you had a false start against Everton, losing 1-0
yeah,
at home, but then you reversed it with the 5-2 at Southampton.
yeah,
And there were big important wins against City and Arsenal, 2-0
yeah,
wins, and after 12 matches you were actually top of the
yeah.
table, right? And from there onwards, it seemed like suddenly it was a very different team. You had a very poor December, Jan, and Feb, 7 losses in
Horrible period.
what 12, 13 games, knocked out of the FA Cup narrowly 5-4 against Everton.
Yeah.
So, what exactly worked at the initial part of the season? What changed, and what caused the season to derail and Spurs losing form after that?
See, what worked is very, 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 very evident, and I thank Mourinho for that because I really never expected to see that. All, I mean, they're definitely world class players, but Kane and Son teaming up to an extent where they were demolishing teams week in week out. I mean, that was just a joy to watch. Um, so I believe, I mean, we all can agree that De Bruyne is the best passer in the league, and I would definitely. I've been saying this for a while now, and Harry Kane is up there almost a close second, I would say. So uh, fair play to Mourinho for spotting it, for making Kane play a little deeper, and I mean, I mean, it's not something that has you know cropped up all of a sudden. I mean, this is years and years of work in the training. I mean, they're good friends off the pitch as well, and they just understand each other pretty well. And this just worked out because
Hmm.
it caught teams, and these guys are quick. And fair play, Lucas Moura is also quick, and you when you just see three quick men running against you, I think that terrifies defenders. So this was a secret mantra, I would say, in the first few games, and it definitely took teams by surprise. And coming to the derailment, why teams, I mean, why we sort of started failing apart. I mean, set pieces were one.
Hmm.
This is a straight and an obvious gaping hole that was in the defense. I think we just conceded way too from set pieces. I've
Hmm.
been crying, even in our podcast that we needed a set piece
Yeah.
coach, but um, that is definitely one big factor. Uh, I think teams started to figure out that all they did was Kane. I mean, the players were passing it around to Kane and Son, and then you start off. You try to stifle them, and that's it. It's the end of the Spurs attack. And obviously, we started sitting deep, and the defenders were not as good as what Mourinho expected or wanted. You needed players that were technically
Yeah.
gifted in order to, you know, play the ball from the back and sort of ensure that there were no mistakes to keep the ball. That did not happen. We soaked in too much pressure, and yeah, the defense crumbled, man. Eric Dyer, Serge Aurier, these.
Yeah, Dyer, I think, had a very average
I mean,
season.
I wouldn't even call it average, to be very honest.
Mm,
It's below average. I still can't understand how the club gave him a long term deal. Uh, but it was, horrific. I stopped watching games, during that period. Sometime, I guess, in Jan. I just couldn't
mm,
watch the games anymore. It was horrible. It was awful to watch. The reason I fell
mm,
in love with this club was with the flair that they were playing football. They were always known to play with the flair. um, that flair was gone, and it was absolutely awful to watch. And I partly blame Mourinho for that. Uh, I mean, we'll
mm.
get to the point where whether was he right or not later. But yeah, I mean, his teams were known to be boring, but this was beyond boring. Now, so I
Hmm.
guess that's sort of started to, when you have an attacking talent like Kane, Son, Bale, and Dombele in your ranks, and you play horrible football like that, it affects the dressing room. I think people started
Hmm.
losing that belief. Although talks of title contenders were premature,
Yeah.
it was just media sort of hyping it so that they can
Hmm.
mock Spurs at a later point in time. But yeah, that I guess the crappy defense that we've had, and there are basically no ideas. I mean, I'm starting to believe all those rumors where, apparently Spurs players did not have any clue what to do apart from passing the ball to Son and Kane. So there was absolutely zero creativity. And I don't know if we've ever discussed this point. I think we missed a player like Ericsson's presence. I think we've
Hmm.
discussed this far too many times for
Yeah.
Arsenal that they did not have a proper
Yeah.
number 10. But looking back,
Hmm.
I think Spurs needed that more than anyone else. Uh, and
Hmm.
the importance of Christian Eriksen was felt, at a later point in time.
Hmm.
So that obviously for going in next summer, it doesn't matter Dele Alli hitting form, because I don't see Dele Alli as a proper number 10. Because yeah, he's good because he makes those runs, and he looks for the pass and he scores goals. That's his strength. He's not a typical
Yeah.
Eriksen-esque player. So I think, even in the interview, if you watch this interview with Gary Neville, Harry Kane just said that, yeah, I mean, things might look dull, but you never know. It's just one or two players that can make a difference in a team. You look at what happened with
Yeah.
Liverpool, what
Hmm.
happened with City, and one defender, one really strong centre back, and one attacking midfielder, and we might see a completely different Spurs. I mean, so I'm still hopeful in that aspect. So yeah, I guess that is what went wrong. Uh, and Dombele was not. I mean, we've seen flashes of brilliance again from him, but he couldn't fulfill the role of a central attacking midfielder. So yeah, it was some really close puzzles, but we couldn't really make the jigsaw. But like as you said,
Hmm.
I guess those defeats in 3 months, I think some of them were just horrible.
Yeah.
How I still can't understand
Yeah.
how we lost to West Ham. They did a double over us, and
Hmm.
uh, I think,
I mean, West Ham had a pretty good season, right? So,
sorry.
I mean, West Ham had a pretty
Oh,
solid season for their stage, right?
definitely. I think, yeah, definitely a pretty good season. I would give them an A plus.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, I mean, I think that run that you're talking about. I mean, I think you lost to Brighton. Leicester at home, I think, was another
yeah,
loss.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it all started with uh, the defeat at Liverpool, if I'm not wrong. I think we lost.
Hmm.
We drew with Palace, then we lost to Liverpool, then we lost to Leicester. We, uh, although our cup run was good, I think, but then it was against Stoke and Brentford, so hardly any complaints. But yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
we drew against Wolves. Then there was that shocking draw at Fulham. I still don't understand how that happened. But then,
Hmm.
yeah, lost to City, lost to Chelsea, lost to Liverpool. The FA Cup exit. It was like a roller coaster, I guess. and it all ended
mm,
with that defeat at Dinamo Zagreb. I still can't get my head around how we lost that, having gone up 2-0 in the first leg. So I think
yeah.
that
Now that you talk about it, like I mean, when you talk about that night against Zagreb, I mean, what transpired on that night? Like, did Mourinho completely lose the plot? And I mean, was that like that? I mean, that was like the death knell for his Spurs managerial career for sure, right?
definitely. I mean, I think see, up to that point, uh, the fans were already they started criticizing the style of football. No one was really interested in watching Spurs play anymore. But it was, I
Hmm.
mean, they still supported Mourinho, or or had hope that, because we just might end up winning the Europa League, and also have a good chance at winning the Carabao Cup. I mean, these were the hopes.
Yeah.
But then that night,
Hmm.
in the manner in which we lost, I think pissed off a lot of players. Number one, I wouldn't be surprised if Harry Kane decided, that's it, I'm done. I don't see
Hmm.
myself winning a trophy here. Um, Probably he
Hmm.
still had a hope, but then that was sort of dashed when Mourinho was sacked a week before the final, the cup final. So,
Hmm.
uh, but then yeah, I think that was a night that probably uh, you know I think Mourinho still got his chance after that. Okay, I wouldn't say that was the end, because, but still, the results after that were also extremely poor. And that game against
Hmm.
United, oh my god, that is another shit show of a performance. And yeah,
Yeah.
I think that sort of drew the curtains for Mourinho.
And sorry, can you remind me the? I mean, so which was a match after which he was sacked? Was it
I
the
think it was after the
draw?
Everton draw, if I'm not wrong, because the game against
Okay.
Southampton was Mason's first game in charge, and we played
Okay.
City after
Okay.
that. But so yeah, the defeat at Old Trafford, no, the defeat at the Spurs Stadium, and then followed by the draw at Goodison.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
right. So, I mean, you also mentioned the League Cup final, right? Mourinho being sacked,
yeah,
I would say, just few days before the League Cup final. Do you think that hampered the preparation, if there was any? I'm pretty sure there was, but do you think if Mourinho was there, he would have? I mean, Spurs would have had a better chance of winning it, or do you think he had? I mean, he had completely lost the dressing room by then, and you would have lost anyways.
see, I people keep pointing the fact that we've beaten Man City quite successfully
Hmm.
with Mourinho
Yeah. Earlier
earlier
in
in
the
the
season.
season, even in the last season as well. So we did a double over them. Uh,
Hmm.
so keeping that track record, one would argue that probably Mourinho should have been given a chance, but we
Yeah.
don't know what has happened behind the scenes, because it was premature. I mean, even from even if I hate Daniel Levy, I think he definitely would have thought this through before sacking him before the cup final. I think that should tell us that things were that bad in the dressing room. I really don't.
Hmm.
Maybe the players just went up to the chairman and told him that, hey, this is what it is, and you know just
Yeah.
sack him. But then even I would probably, I at that time I had said, yeah, we keeping players happy was the probably the most important thing, and a new manager bounce could be what was the missing factor in that needed for the players to sort of perform well. But then in the
Hmm.
hindsight, since we anyway lost, I probably now think that we probably should have stuck with Mourinho. And it's all a game of ifs
Hmm.
and buts. But then
Yeah.
yeah, so it was so close. I mean, obviously we didn't have any chance, but the scoreline says that it was really
No,
close.
to be very, I mean, to be very rational, I think for eight, I mean, till City scored the goal, it was still nil nil.
Yep.
All it needed was probably one slip in concentration, Son in a great position, and you never know how that. I mean, that result could have gone
I,
either ways, right? It was that sort of a
and
game because
yeah,
Spurs, I mean, even though City were dominating, they essentially failed to score a goal,
exactly,
right?
exactly. So that's one criticism that I'm sure, I mean, should go to Kane and Son. They failed to turn up in that game.
mm,
and this has happened in the past as well. I mean, big games. I guess obviously they're world class, no doubt about it, and they would be winning trophies left, right, and center if they leave. But
mm,
I
yeah.
guess I expected them to turn up and show a bit more of, probably take the game into their own hands and sort of make a difference. I guess there's
Mm,
no. I mean, you could say the same thing about Arsenal as well. uh, Two
mm,
teams that probably were playing some very good football, they do not have an impact player, someone that can take the game by the scruff of the neck and then just turn it around. While
mm,
City, Liverpool, have bundles of such players. Probably, I mean, I would
mm.
place Bruno also into that, in that category, but I really don't see that. I don't know if it's the lack of confidence or if it's the lack of ability, but yeah, uh, I think that's what costed us the the Carabao Cup final.
So we, I mean, we briefly touched upon on Jose, right? And obviously there's this conundrum about, whenever, I mean, I think clubs by now are aware that, when you get Jose, you're also getting his
Yeah,
baggage, and he's very different from a typical manager, right? But what he's at least achieved in his previous with his previous clubs is trophies,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Irrespective of, how he manages his players, whether his players like him or
Mm.
not, his style of football, he still won trophies, even though people would classify his time at United a failure. He's done it with Inter, Chelsea, obviously, Porto.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think? I mean, yeah, I mean, it had reached a point at Spurs where it was no longer sustainable. But in, I mean, as Spurs fans, do you think it was the right time to sack him? When I say the right time, or do you think giving him another full season would have made sense?
Um, it's a difficult question to answer really, because uh, you know, Kane and Son had faith in Mourinho until the last moment, and that tells us something. Okay, uh,
Hmm.
so this takes me back to 2019 when Mauricio Pochettino said that it's going to be a painful rebuild, and we didn't back him. Number one,
Hmm.
it's the same players who got Mourinho's. I mean, it's the same set of players who got both the managers sacked. And trust me, I think
Yeah.
both are world class. Yeah, one is a very good young manager, and one is absolute world class manager. And both of them are gone
Hmm.
because the same set of players did not turn up in games. Okay, so
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, definitely Jose will have to take blame because of his tactics, because of his stubborn rigidness, or his lack of taking the
Hmm.
dressing room into his control, or losing it rather. But it doesn't matter if we bring in Conte, if it doesn't matter if we hire back Mauricio Pochettino. I don't think any manager with this current squad would succeed at Spurs. Okay, I think there are
Hmm.
a set of players that need to be sacked immediately,
Hmm.
terminate the
Hmm.
contract, take a financial hit if possible, because without doing that,
Hmm.
I don't think we are going to succeed. I don't think no manager can coach them. All right.
Do you want to name them?
Dude, there are many. It's just there's no point in taking names, but I'm not afraid to take names as well, because I mean it's very very
Hmm.
very evident. Because dude, I really think not. It's not just about the performances on the pitch. I feel that it's
Yeah.
the harmony that they're sort of disrupting in the dressing room. And call me out for saying this. I think Serge Aurier, Ndombele, and Musa Sissoko are at the forefront of this. I'm not even kidding,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
remember when Joe Sacramento in the Tottenham's uh, documentary said that Musa
Hmm.
Sissoko, I mean, holds too much of control in the dressing room, and people were Mourinho was surprised. I mean, we were all laughing. It's like, how can that happen?
Hmm.
That wasn't a joke. Okay, the
Hmm.
failed relationships with Serge Aurier, him calling him out openly, the failed relationship with Ndombele that was sort of repaired by Daniel Levy, did
Hmm.
have a part to
And
play.
what about, I mean, when you're talking about failed relationships, yeah, I mean, What
Of
about
course.
Dele Alli,
Yeah,
Rose?
I'm definitely
Yeah.
coming to that. Dele's one was,
Mm.
I mean, Danny Rose, ignore. I think he was sort of, he was nowhere near the first team level. But he definitely was right when he called
Mm.
out saying that, there are players who are shit in training and you still decide to play with them week in, week out. So he was
Yeah.
essentially admitting that he was shit, but he was still, prefer. I think presumably that was to Dele and Eric Dyer.
Mm.
You can spice things up the way you want with that statement, but um, so yeah, I mean, Danny Rose, he was way past his prime. We've seen that for a few seasons, and uh,
Mm.
he was offered ways to move out of the club and get regular first team football action. He decided not to, so that's up to him. But he's been a good servant, and since his name came up, I think he deserves a good goodbye. I think I feel Spurs have not given him a good farewell. A tweet
Mm.
doesn't work. I mean, he probably was the longest
Mm.
serving player uh, till the end of the season. So yeah,
Mm.
but the Dele Alli situation, yeah, um, you know, Mourinho called him out for being a lazy trainer. He sort of had a reaction to that, I would say, and the reaction was pretty good. I mean, he scored goals. I mean, what else? I mean,
Mm.
that I was happy because
Yeah, but he couldn't sustain his place in the squad, right? For whatever
yeah.
reason.
So again, he's someone who's got a strong temperament. Okay, and
Mm.
anyone with a strong temperament under Mourinho is a bad choice. So you see
Yeah.
hardworking people, people who are willing to give their 100%. They had the best season under
Mm.
Mourinho, and I'm going to take
Mm.
names. I mean, Lloris had a blinder of a season. I mean, yeah, he did not keep
Mm.
clean sheets, but dude, look at his. He's got the best save ratio in the entire Premier League, better than Emi Martinez.
Mm.
He's saved the most number of shots. So he's had a very good season personally. Højbjerg had a brilliant season. Son, Kane, and these guys are the ones
Mm.
who I believe. Lucas Moura had I mean, fairly comparatively better season, and these guys are the ones who are
Yeah.
willing to put their head down and train, right? And then you have Dele
Mm.
Alli, who
Yeah.
had a I think a good patch, but then I don't know what has happened in the training. We know how he is, and but I was glad. I mean, yeah, maybe you might have. I mean, Mourinho had to use some different tactics in order to manage him. I don't think it ended well, but
Mm.
I still think there is a player in Delhi.
Mm.
But I don't know if it's too late for him to sort of recoup. But I mean, England team had used to have 5 to 6 players. Half the squad were from Tottenham. Okay, 2 seasons,
Mm.
not even two, 1.5 year back, and now there's just one in the Euro
Mm.
squad, right? So that
Mm.
speaks of the decline that these guys have had personally. But yeah, again, Delhi Ali has a specific skill set. I keep telling this. You have to play him in a certain way in order for him to
Mm.
play effectively. And any other way, he's not
Yeah.
versatile. I would argue with people who call him
Yeah.
versatile. He's not versatile. Yeah,
Mm.
you could. I wouldn't go to an extent where I would call him one dimensional, but then he's got a specific task to do, and that task is he's a goal scoring midfielder, right? You allow him to
Mm.
play
Yeah.
that role, and he's going to do a good job. So whoever is coming
Yeah.
in, God forbid, if Antonio Conte comes in, they're going to be mass murders at Tottenham. I'm telling you. For some reason, I want him because he's going to weed out this negativity and just chuck players out. He doesn't care for relationships and egos. So yeah, so that brings to my next point. I think no matter which manager comes in, there's going to be a clear out at Tottenham Hotspur. Call it a fire
Mm.
sale. I think it's time to sort of uh, make players leave before and start a rebuild. I think that's the only way forward for the club.
But it's not an easy market to sell either,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, definitely. Uh, I mean, looking at potential suitors as well as the transfer fees, I think it's the worst climate that you can wish for a clear out. So, which is why it's very very important that I think not just that, even the the way Daniel Levy has got his chips wrong, and the Europa Super League debacle. I mean, how can we finish this podcast without discussing that? So I think that had he. I mean, let's be honest. I think his job is on the line. You would say. I guess there's a lot of backlash. From the fans, from all quarters, and
Hmm.
so this is, I think, the last opportunity for Daniel Levy to get it right. If he screws this up, I
Hmm.
think um, there's going. I mean, there's still massive protests, and people are
Yeah.
calling him out to sort of step down and walk away. But then this is his last chance, and I would hope that, although it's tricky. I can understand from his point of view as well, but it's tricky because look at the lost revenue that we had from, the lack of ticket sales and the concerts that were supposed to come in and the NFL matches.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Plus, it's going to be a harder market to sell, if you think about it.
definitely, yeah, because I mean, people know that we're desperate to sell, and they're gonna undercut whatever bids that we sort of have for them. And yeah, I mean, it's very clear. In order to bring in players at Tottenham Hotspur, we have to sell players. It's very very simple, and we
Yeah.
already are in what we have a debt of what, over $1 billion. We lost
Hmm.
approximately around 200 million in net revenue this season.
Hmm.
So
That's almost the net levels of Real Madrid and
I mean, yeah,
Barcelona.
correct. So COVID struck us bad. Definitely, undoubtedly, because uh, a club like Tottenham, which was efficiently run, uh, you have to understand that.
No, but you also have to, I mean, factor in the fact that the new stadium was completed just in time when the pandemic struck.
Exactly,
So that was unfortunate timing as well.
correct. So yeah, this sort of makes the situation even worse, I would say. um,
Mm.
I think
Yeah.
the only plus point that we could look forward to is hopefully the naming rights conundrum is going to be resolved. We might be, let's
Mm.
hope that we find a naming rights partner, and that probably would give us some cash to spend. I guess they're also looking at ways to sort of restructure the debt within the organization, to see if
Mm.
something can be done. Maybe a refinance that would allow the club to put it back into player acquisitions and stuff. So yeah, yeah, it's a big summer, and obviously the biggest out of all is the Harry Kane situation. What would transpire on that, and Son's contract. So it's going to be a very, very, very busy summer at Tottenham Hotspur, and I have no idea why we don't have a head coach appointed yet. I think that's another yeah, because see, what, today is 29th of May, and I
Mm.
think before any transfers are done, I'm sure the manager situation has to be uh, you know
Mm.
sorted. I think Pochettino wants to come back, but PSG is
Mm.
definitely not letting him go. They're not willing to let him go, and obviously,
Yeah.
so I guess unless and until the situation with Leonardo is sorted, I don't see that happening,
Mm.
and that's not good news for us because Antonio Conte, for some reason, is interested in managing Tottenham Hotspur. And we are in the Conference
Mm.
League. I don't know what's with Tottenham, man. Uh, somehow we make it to the Super League, elite club. We still attract good managers, world class managers, I would say. So,
Yeah.
but I don't see. I mean, if we keep Conte waiting, Real Madrid are gonna snap because I think Allegri is done. They just have two options right now. It's either going to be Conte or Pochettino for Madrid, and if PSG are not willing to let him go, I mean, what, we'll end up with Graham Potter.
There's also Mourinho. I mean, Mourinho has obviously gone to Roma, but
Yeah,
there aren't too many options right now unless you want to
yeah.
add people like Graham Potter and Roy Hodgson
I mean,
into the
Roy
mix.
Hodgson is retired, I guess, for good. I hope so. But yeah, I mean, Eric Ten Hag, uh, a potential suitor, Graham Potter.
Mm.
I think Simone
the
Inzaghi was leading the
Galtier.
race, but now that he's signed with Inter, that's out of the
There's
scene.
there's Galtier also.
Oh
Galtier,
yeah,
the Lille
but
coach who just
it appears he's going to
resigned.
OGC Nice, no?
Oh, okay, moving. I think yeah, moving back closer to his
Yeah,
family.
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, you touched upon important stuff here, but to kind of sum it up, it. I mean, not to sum it up, I would say I think it also boils down to the futures of probably Tottenham's two best
Mhm.
players, Kane and
Yeah.
Son. Kane has obviously made it very. I mean, it's public that he's put in a transfer request. Um, do you see Spurs holding on to him somehow for longer? And what about Son? Do you think Son might also be tempted to move away from White Hart Lane, or do you see Son probably becoming the next, the next most important player for Spurs?
Um, okay. So from what I hear from the club sources, I mean, there are a lot of people who have been who know what's happening at Tottenham have confirmed that Kane hasn't handed in a transfer request. It's more of a come and get me plea, right? And I guess
Hmm.
it's going to be a very 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 difficult deal to go through, because I don't think Spurs are going to look to sell him for anything less than 150 million. Number one,
Hmm.
he's off to the Euros now, so definitely they've got to wait till the Euros are done. Number two,
Hmm.
number three. From his comments, it appears that it was sort of a, I don't know, an ultimatum to Daniel Lewis that get it sorted or else I'm gone, right?
Hmm.
So um, yeah, I mean, you should also think that, I mean, even though I guess Manchester City is probably the only club that can afford him, and I wonder if they're going to end up paying 150 million for a 28-year-old. I mean, I don't think the money should be a problem for any club. He's definitely a guaranteed 25 goal in Premier League every year. That would make it what, 40
Yeah.
goals a year, and it's
Yeah.
peanuts. Okay, for any club like that, if
Hmm.
an offer like that is peanuts. And
Hmm.
so yeah, I think that's the missing piece in a jigsaw for City. Imagine him, De Bruyne, Mahrez
Hmm.
on the wing.
Yeah.
It's just trouble, and Premier League can turn into a
Hmm.
farmers' league. So, but again,
Yeah.
it's a very
Like the Bundesliga.
correct. But I guess, having
Yeah.
said that, I think given the current situation at Spurs, if City does give in a couple of players, I think Daniel
Hmm.
Levy would probably think about it, definitely. So a
Hmm.
big decision on that. And coming to Son, I mean, let's be honest, he thrives when he's got that assistance from Kane. And I
Hmm.
for some reason, Son has proven over the past that he can sort of lose confidence and have some patchy moments, and that's really, I mean, you saw, I mean, second half is he was literally ineffective. The first and
Yeah.
second seasons are like, classic two halves. So um, but then again, from what I'm hearing, his contract situation is sorted. He's expected to sign a new contract. But then again,
Hmm.
I just hope that it doesn't turn out to be like Aubameyang's. Uh, but
Hmm.
then again, I think whatever contract is going to be there, it's going to be a long-term one. They say 4 years at least. Uh, but that,
Yeah.
if they manage to do that, I think that's some statement. I would say
Hmm.
so. Probably might even persuade Kane to wait it out another season,
Hmm.
wait for
Yeah.
the situation to sort of soften. I think once we're out from this pandemic, things might become better. So I have a belief that Kane will stay for another season, but this season is going to be
Hmm.
extremely critical, I guess. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I see. I have a very simple theory. I think Daniel
Hmm.
Levy's what, he's graduated from Yale, if I'm not wrong, or some Ivy League school. He understands economics. He
Hmm.
understands how money works. He's a very smart man, from what we all know. It comes down to
Hmm.
simple math. Okay, imagine Kane leaves, all right, and he's been scoring the majority of the goals for the club for the last couple of years.
Hmm.
How much does it cost to replace him? Very simple. and how successful, how sure can you be? Look at Morata, look at Werner, look at, I don't know, I wouldn't say Abramovich, but I mean Joe Linton. A lot of big money signings,
mm,
strikers who've come in.
mm,
I mean Gabriel Jesus for that matter. So
mm.
what is the
Yeah.
success rate? It's minimal. Uh, so would you be taking a risk by, okay, you might sell him for 100 or 120 million? Let's say you spend
Mm,
60-70 million on a striker. How
mm.
sure are you that they will be a shining light? And it's not just in Premier League. I think what last season we were all raving up about Victor Osimhen's transfer to Napoli. How did that turn out?
Yeah.
I mean, Jonathan
Yeah.
David to Lille. How did that? I mean, although they won the title,
I think he had a
decent season,
yeah
but
good
again,
season.
it's nowhere near to what
Yeah,
Kane
not
can.
a great.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, from an economics point of view, it's better off to invest money right now, bring in some good
Mm,
players that would actually keep the players happy and get that piece of silverware, rather than
yeah.
letting Kane go. I think it's a very, very simple decision that he has. But
Mm,
yeah,
mm.
I just hope he doesn't overcomplicate it.
That was quite a passionate discussion,
Yeah,
KV,
man.
and I think we've almost come to the end of it.
Yeah.
So before we kind of end, if you had to, I think this is a pretty straightforward one. Who would be your player for? I mean, your Tottenham
Harry
player of
Kane.
the season?
Let's move on. I mean, can't, there's no question.
Too bad it's not good. Too bad it doesn't. I mean, it seems unlikely you'll hold on to him for next
Yeah,
season.
hopefully. Yeah.
And if you had to name one game of the season, what would it be?
Right off the bat, it definitely is the battering of United at Old Trafford. It was, oh my God, it was just pleasing, man. I was so happy. Obviously, the United fans would have the last laugh, but I was so happy that some of them had to refrain from social media. It was just delightful, and yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I think all football fans were happy with that result. So, but then starting to think of it, right? I think I was most surprised uh, with the win against Leicester on the final day, because that was,
Mm,
I didn't expect
mm,
that, very honestly. Yeah, I was
mm,
resigned to the fact that Arsenal are finally going to celebrate Tottenham's Day, and it
mm.
looked like that up to 60th minute, 70th minute. I think people were like, "Yeah, this is done."
Yeah.
But then we came back. So I don't know. Now that the season has ended, probably I think the Leicester game would have been, but yeah,
Mm,
I think those two are going to be my contenders for the game of the season.
mm. And if you had to give Tottenham a rating out of 10 for the season, what would it be?
Can I give them -1? Because from my expectations, that was a disaster. But I guess there were, obviously, I mean, Kane winning the Golden Boot as well as the Playmaker Award. Eric Lamela,
Mm,
hopefully he'll win the goal of the season, the Premier League goal of the season
mm,
against that
mm.
striker at Arsenal. I think that was brilliant.
What is the result of that match? Could you remind
I
me?
don't know. I know. Let's not get there. But then, yeah, we finished above you, so I think we had the last laugh on that. But yeah, I think that was a pretty, I think, brilliant goal. And but then, yeah,
Mm,
to be very honest, I wouldn't think anything beyond a 4 would warrant Spurs. I guess 4 out of 10 would be a fair rating.
mm. All right. Thanks, KV. Awesome conversation again. Hope to catch you during the Euros.
Oh yeah,
And there's a solid gap of 3 months this time between now and the next season. And hope to see you suffer a little more next season as well.
likewise, Supreet. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.